Hi, my name is Sharon Saylor. I graduated from MTSU in 2003 with a political science major with minors in history and education. I graduated from MTSU in 2018 with a master's in administration and supervision, and I've been a social studies teacher for 20 years in the Tennessee public school system. My main concentrations has been world history from the fall of Rome to the Enlightenment, and the United States history from exploration to the Civil War. This is my second year at Liberty University. For my research project, I looked at the key question: why are there so many pagan practices within Christianity, especially here in America? And this led me to my thesis statement: the early integrative and adaptive conversion policies of Pope Gregory the Great and his missionaries in Britain, particularly during the 5th, 6th, and 7th centuries, contributed to a synchronism of Anglo-Saxon pagan traditions within Christian doctrine, leading to a modern Christianity shaped by both biblical and pagan influences. I first started with the verse 1 Corinthians 10:20 through 22, where the Apostle Paul instructs the Christians of Corinth that what pagan sacrifice they offer to demons and not to gods. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of the demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. And this is significant to me because I was looking at how the synchronism of paganism and Christian traditions has led to the continual blending and worship of two religions, even in modern times. This modern hybridization is not only found within holiday celebrations such as Halloween, Easter, and Christmas, and local worship practices, but it also has caused the rise of a new form of Christianity called Christian nationalism. Now, the type of methodology that I used was a historical methodology. I relied upon primary and secondary sources. I wanted to investigate and make this argument that our Christianity that we practice today is filled with pagan tendencies and pagan customs. I started looking at Beattie's Ecclesiastical History of England in De Tempore Ratione and Pope Gregory's letter to the Abbot Mellitus. I also was looking at how all throughout the Anglo-Saxon history, there have been both pagan and Christian tendencies in the literature, like in Beowulf, for example, the Book of Cerne, the Book Leechdom's Wart Cunning and Starcraft, and the Lacnunga Charms, like a remedy for a successful birth, and Lay of the Nine Twigs of Woden. Now, with all of these things, I found that the pagans had gods and goddesses. For example, the goddess Eostora was where we get Easter from. We also had the Night of the Mothers, where Christmas could be said to have originated from. Blotmaneth, which is the month of sacrifices, where they killed herds of animals to the gods. And then we also got some influences, the Anglo-Saxon, because in this time period, this area is going to be invaded by both the British and then later the Vikings. And then you have the Christians who's going to come in. And of course, there's going to be this mixing of these religions. And so the Viking gods is where we get the names for like Tuesday, named for Ty, Wednesday for Woden, Thursday for Thor, Friday after Frigg. We also see lots of pagan tendencies with the reciting of charms and the worship of trees, superstitions, looking at the way that nature influences the physical world, where birds are maybe in the sky, or amulets that hold special power. And you'll see all of these things kind of being referred to in the Anglo-Saxon literature, in the funerary and archaeological artifacts. Sutton Hoo is a great example of where you had the pagan mixed in with the Christian kind of archaeological artifacts. For example, with the Sutton Hoo, we see that there's a helmet that has, of course, a pagan influence, but then we also see spoons that are supposed to represent Paul and Saul. They exchanged from Paul and where he was Saul to begin with. So all of that would be an example of that synchronization that you see. The Book of Cerne, for example, we see the Lorica of St. Patrick, where he says, I invoke these forces to intervene between me and every fierce, merciless force. When someone says, I invoke, that's more of like a pagan characteristic. And then, of course, we see things with the legal codes. For example, the canons of Theodore, the annuals of Ulster, and the annuals of Tigernach, the laws of Wittrod. All of these things are showing us how people were still being pagan because there were laws against certain pagan activities, like if you were caught doing witchcraft, but they didn't have people being killed for it necessarily. They had people more of being fined for these things. And I think that's because there's so many people doing that they knew a mass killing would have been too much. Now, as I did my research, the main conclusions I came to was America's foundation as a Christian nation never fully unchained itself from its pagan roots. You had the Puritans and the Salem witch trials. You have the Baptists with the Roman road to salvation and the kneeling benches. All of these things show you how paganism was still intertwined. We also see a new form, and this is what's scary to me, of pagan theology that has infiltrated our churches here in America, and that's called Christian nationalism. And because of this Christian nationalism, we see a back to pagan roots of thinking that we have a manifest destiny, that we are God's covenant people, we're the new Israel here in America, and all of that goes back to those pagan roots that we had seen previously. And so we have morphed into this religion of both the biblical foundation and pagan characteristics. Now, this gets me into my further study and other questions. I need to know more about Christian nationalism. Are these practices universal, or does it break off into certain parts? Is there a defined Christian nationalist doctrine? Are there differences in pagan tendencies between Protestants versus Catholic Christianity? And these are some things that I would probably need to research more to get a feel of. Thank you.